Okay, children. So today we start now with the third module of our employability skill. That is the third unit and the last one, uh, which is your information and communication technology skills. That is ICT skills. Okay. Now, this is something which you have been using, about computer and its internal parts and security and how do I maintain my data? What all should I do to keep my machine healthy? It's all about that. There are four main aspects into it. One is definitely the basic computer operations. Then we have handling the file and the folders, which is performing basic file operations. Computer care and maintenance, very important. Otherwise, machines will not be durable. And then maintaining your data security and privacy. Okay. So these four aspects are there. Now, yes, basic computer operations, obviously, you all understand. But just to give you an overview, we talk and pick up the terms which you need to keep in mind. That's the only thing. So here we are talking about that ICT refers to all the methods, tools, concept related to storing, recording, and sending the digital information. So anything inside the computer, we call it a digital information. So in this portion, we are talking about storage of digital information, recording, maintaining, sending the digital data. Okay. Mainly the computer talks about two main parts, the hardware and the software. So it's like the TV and the connection. So TV is my black box or the hardware, and Amazon Prime, or you can say the ZTV. These are my softwares, the content which will run in that hardware, in that black box. Okay. So these are the two main parts. Now talking about hardware, it's of course we all understand that there are various devices categorized into input, output, storage, which helps us to work with the computer. So input devices, basic input devices we talk about is the keyboard and the mouse. Now, yeah, very fundamental, but yes, I have included it here because while in the objective questions, they might use these terms which you might feel, confused. So here we have the command keys, which is your, page up, enter and backspace and all that. Then you have your punctuation, comma, semicolon, like that. Then you have your function keys, F1, F2, F3, F4. Then you have your navigation keys, page up, page down. Then you have, in the navigation keys, you also have the up, down, left and right button keys. Windows keys, control, the numeric keypad. This right side is your numeric keypad. And the normal alphabet keys are there. Okay, so that's how you get a basic layout of the keyboard. Similarly, the mouse here talks about left button, right button, and the scroll button. Now we have to just keep these small things in mind that with mouse, what all kind of operations I can do. I can do a left click, I can do a right click, I can scroll with my scroll button up and down. Then I can drag drop, I can roll over keeping the mouse click, and I roll over left mouse button on, then I can roll over that with the mouse. That is for selection. I can do a single click of the left mouse button. I can do a single click of the right mouse button. So be sure that you understand these basic button movements of the mouse, because they can really tap you over these questions, which might sound very simple, but yet confusing at times, the way they might ask you the question. Okay. Now, talk about the output devices, something which gives you a display or a hard copy maybe of your digital content. So we have the printers and the monitors, plotters, things like that in the output devices. Okay. I've just used these terms in order to keep these terms in your mind. That is, printers can be categorized into impact, non-impact photo printers. In the display devices we have nowadays CRT, LCD, LEDs, QLEDs, You see all sorts of advertisements nowadays during Diwali, talking about various sorts of displays. Okay, so you've got all these as your output devices. Okay, then comes the most important part of the system, computer system, that is the CPU. So your basic system unit, when we say, is the motherboard, where the whole thing is clubbed into. You have all the attachments there with which the machine actually works. So here is the CPU, which is my main processor, Intel processor. There are many more companies for it. Intel is the most popular one. And the processor is also called as the brain. Okay, motherboard is the main circuit board. These terms, just objective, they can really drive you crazy. That's the problem. Okay, so here we say, then you have the parts of the CPU: control unit, ALU, and memory. Okay, ALU, as we all understand, arithmetic and logical operations. Control unit is basically controlling the whole setup, retrieving the data, when to retrieve, how to retrieve from the memory, then send it to the processor, to the ALU, fetching the data in between intermediary fetches and all. So all that is being controlled. You can see, you see red lights in the on the streets, on the roads. So that red light is controlling the traffic. When will cross, what will cross, how will it move. So that's the purpose of the CU in the system also. Then another very, very important aspect is the memory. Without the memory, the machine is actually empty, will not do much work. Now, memory actually talks about two types. One is the external memory, second is the internal memory. External memory, or the secondary memory, is basically the unlimited storage I have in terms of hard disk, in terms of flash drives, pen drives, CDs, DVDs, unlimited. That's external to the machine. Internal is called the primary memory, and primary is classified into two: RAM and ROM, random access memory and read-only memory. Okay, just keep in mind the differences I'm talking about. Primary memory talks about two memory here, RAM and ROM. Okay, as the name suggests, read-only memory. So you can only read from there. You cannot write on it. So this memory is not meant for you, for the user to write. And what's the purpose of this memory? This memory contains startup instructions. My startup instructions required for the machine to start. I also call it as a BIOS, basic input output system. Like when you switch on, there are certain things which happen automatically. I don't ask him to do those things. Who tells him to do it? The ROM BIOS, as we call it. Okay. But then after that, when you start working, like currently I'm working on Zoom, I'm working on my presentation. I have maybe another file opened at the background. I might have some printing work going on. So who is taking care of all that work? That is the RAM. It's also called as the random access memory. If you can store the data there, you can read from there, and whatever work you're doing all the time, that's a constant interaction with your RAM. So RAM is supposed to be non-permanent, volatile, but something with which we constantly interact. ROM is permanent, non-volatile, and not meant for the user to interact with. These 3 points you can remember easily. Okay, now here is something which I thought that I'll ask you to go through. I will share these links also. It's just about the internal setup of the CPU cabinet, the whole thing which is available in the CPU cabinet, you see, and importance of every element of that, and how exactly these things are connected. That whole thing is very well explained in these videos. So I have a link specified here. I'll put it on in the description also. So from there you can check out. This is one sample motherboard I've attached, which is not a new version, but an old one. So here you have the BIOS, you can see This is the BIOS place where you put the ROM BIOS. Then here you have the RAM slots. Here you have the processor socket. Inside this, I put my processor. These are all ports. Various ports are there. You can see that. Okay, they're all connected to the motherboard. Okay. Moving further, then we have the storage devices. We all understand what all we are using for our permanent storage. I've just discussed it also. We have the CDs, you have the DVDs, you have the external hard disk, then your flash drives, USB drives, and they are unlimited. Any number of devices you can use to store your data. Okay, all these come under the removable category because you attach and use and then again remove. And there's one which is permanently there inside generally. That's my hard disk, non-removable but external to the system. Okay, so that's like a quick overview of my hardware, basic important components of the hardware. Now talking about the software. All this is available. You have a very good set of input, output devices, storage devices, everything is there. But unless you have the software, the programs to run these devices, nothing will work. Okay. So hardware would not function without the softwares. That is something which has to be kept in mind. It's a collection of programs given to you in order to make that hardware function, interact with that hardware. You want to give something for printing. Okay, the printer is supposed to give you an error message, right? So who's going to take care of this communication? The software. You get a printer, you get a CD along with that to install. What's that? That's the software, the device driver meant for that device. Okay. The overall functioning of the computer, interaction with my external devices, with the user, and everything it takes care of. Who's that? That's my operating system, my OS. Okay. Most common OS which we use is your Windows. Some people use the Mac, and under the open source category, you have Ubuntu, Unix, Linux, you have all this. Okay, so these are my OS examples. Now they can give you those odd one out, pick out the odd one out from the categories in the MCQ. So they might say, Ubuntu, Windows, and Mac, and the fourth option could be Microsoft Word. So which is the odd one out? All other three are OS, but Microsoft Word is not an operating system. It is a general purpose software. Okay, that is why these names are important to be kept in mind. Then mobile devices also have the OS. Apple, Google Android, these are the most common ones. There are others too. Okay, so OS is somebody who is taking care of the overall functionality of that particular system, whether a mobile or a computer. Now, certain things again to be kept in mind when you talk about starting and the shutting down of the computer. So when you start, I said, just maybe a few minutes back, I said that when you power button on, then there are certain instructions which automatically happen. Okay, that's called my BIOS, basic input output system. That has a set of instructions given, which we also call as ROM BIOS, BIOS, whatever. Now, this person has been given to us by the manufacturer. He codes everything onto it and gives it pre-installed, you can say, into your computer. And it has been designed in such a manner that it's automatically read. That's the only data he has once the machine starts as a memory. So he reads from there and executes. Under that execution, the first step, what he does is a kind of a self-test. It's also called as power on self-test. POST, power on self-test. Okay, what's that? Now, if you have ever noticed it, maybe in the school or somewhere, like when you have a proper desktop, when you power on, you find if you have a printer attached, the light blinks. CD-ROM attached, a light blinks. Computer keyboard, a light blinks. And there's some numbers flashing, rolling onto your screen. That's the checking of the RAM. Now, what exactly he does? He does like a, a peripheral check. These are the things I have to work with. So he just checks everything. Okay, everything is fine. Keyboard mouse becomes like a basic thing nowadays. That's why if the keyboard is not attached, he will give you an error. Keyboard not found, and press F1 to continue. So you attach the keyboard to the computer, press the F1 key, and then it starts working. That means it is just checking what all devices it has to work with, knowing everybody, like, hi, hello types. That is a kind of a self-test, first step, which the machine does. Then he loads the OS through the bootstrap loader. He loads the OS and then passes on the control to your OS. That's my Windows or Ubuntu, as I said, or Linux or Unix or whatever, Mac OS, whatever. It starts loading the Windows files, if I'm talking about Windows, and then hands over the control to it. Where is the control coming to us? How is the control coming to us? I know my desktop appears. I generally see on my screen, right? Till the desktop appears, I really can't do much. Yeah, there's a login process also nowadays. So there's a login process. After that, the desktop appears. So I know that my system has been ready. Now I can go for it. Similarly, when you shut down, you can log off to log in as a separate user. Okay. Login is like your multiple users for your machine. So once you log in with this ID or you log in with that ID, so you can log off from one ID, the system continues to work. When you say shutdown, you properly, completely shut down the machine, close the machine. Okay. So few terms which needs to be kept in mind, because in objective they can pick them up. Okay. Talking about files and folders, we all understand that files are like individual component which I try to store my data in, and then multiple files are put under a folder. Subfolders can also be there inside a folder. That's how the system is being stored. Storing the data which you are given. Okay. What needs to be kept in mind is that a file is identified by the name and the extension. Like a person is identified by the name of the person and the surname. Okay, differentiated by the surname. Similarly, a file is having a file name and a extension. And those two things are separated by a dot. Okay, so it can be abc.doc. So I know it's a doc file. abc.xls. I know it's a Excel file. abc.mp3. I know it's a sound file. Okay, abc.txt. I know it's a text file. So by the extension, you can make out what kind of file it is, right? Like even we do, by the name of the person, by the extension or the surname of the person, I can make out, he is like a Bengali or a South Indian. Few we can understand from those names, right? So there is a pattern by which we can understand. Similarly, here also the extension tells you what kind of file I'm actually talking about. And by default, when you are creating a file in a particular software, those extensions are automatically associated with the file. Like I make a Word file, so .doc becomes a automatic association. Okay. Moving further, we talk about the basic tips for care of your computer so that you have a better life of your machine. Few points I've given. I might have missed a few, but these are the basic ones. Like we say, we should not eat or drink in front of our computers so that things don't fall on it and the keyboard gets damaged. Water though is like very bad, and dry things also, even dust gets accumulated under those keys, and then those keys don't work properly. Okay, so even the finger marks needs to be cleaned from time to time on the monitor or on the keyboard with a soft cloth. That should be done. Then obviously you should not drop your laptops or handheld devices, whatever you are using, because that might damage the hard disk or the system overall. It might break the monitor, affect your system in many ways. So be careful. Of course, your system should not get very much heated up. Don't overcharge your battery. Do not run too many programs at a time. It slows down the process. Maintain a maintenance schedule, like time to time, every week, every month. You do a backup of your files, you do a virus scan, virus check, you do a disk cleanup, you clean the unnecessarily temporary files, cookies, which get automatically downloaded whenever you are visiting different websites. Cookies are small files which get automatically downloaded on your machine. Okay. So there are ways in the browser settings where we go and delete all that, clear off from the browser settings, so that your machine is not overburdened by these kind of files unnecessarily. Okay. Spam folder from a mailbox should be deleted. You should not open the spam mails, just to avoid viruses into your system. Okay. For overall computer security, when we talk about and privacy, we talk in terms of two things: the various threats and the solutions I have to some extent to take care of these threats. Okay. Now the threats are as follows. The first being a theft of information or the hardware. Somebody stole your machine. So physically stealing the system. That is definitely a problem. So you have to be careful about it. Then hacking your identity. You are using a machine in your office, and then there's somebody who sees you entering your password, and then when you're not there, he enters your password, guesses your password, and enters logins through your system and steals your information, personal information, your banking details, your something mischievous he did which should not be done, and then creates trouble for you. Okay, that's the identity theft. Physical theft, identity theft, and software piracy theft. This all we understand that when you are using a software which is not licensed, or we distribute this kind of unauthorized copies of program, this is stealing of software. We should not do that. Okay. You should not use somebody else is forwarding you something. You should not use something like this also. Now, viruses in general is categorized into programs which are meant to damage your system. General definition of virus. Now, we categorize them into these four categories: worms, trojans, online predators, internet scams. They all are being categorized into your virus category only. When you talk about worms, just correlated to your body worms. So one small worm inside your body, and then you see it multiply, not only inside your body, even in your house. They multiply very fast. किसी भी चीज में कीड़ा लग जाता है तो कितनी जल्दी मल्टीप्लाई करता है वो लोग, राइट? Similarly, worms are going to be those destructive things in the computer which will spread very fast. You replicate and spread very fast, and then removing them becomes a problem. It might eat up your memory space. It might corrupt all your files as and when it is multiplying and affecting folders. It creates a problem. Those are your worms. Trojan horses is an interesting concept. Trojan horse basically says that it appears to be a useful software, okay, but actually it is like a virus. It'll ask for, when you click on some site, sometimes some link somebody has sent you, and you click on that, and you find that it is asking for some kind of information, a very proper kind of a screen layout, and it is asking some information which you find is okay, he's asking me for some reason, and you give those information to him, but ultimately you see that, find it that it is a trap. Okay, it's like it was not meant to be a genuine one. We could not realize it, right? That is why we say that always go for the secure sites. On the browser, I mean the address bar, somewhere where you have a lock with the site name, and you have HTTPS. That's a secure site. Okay, so those kind of sites should be used other than any other insecure sites. You should not use them. Okay, then you have these online predators. Now these are like you find them everywhere in your Facebook and other places, in WhatsApp also. They try to pose as somebody else. and try to trap you into an inappropriate relationship. These kind of things happen very commonly, and we read in the newspapers also. A fake profile they create and they talk to you, they kind of misuse your feelings, and then they tend to motivate you, manipulate you to do things which are not right. So all these things you should be careful about. And you have internet scams also. Like in the mail, sometimes I receive a message or mail saying that you have won a huge lottery, so you have to submit this much amount of, or they say submit your bank details and we transfer the money. It's all hoax, never happens. So be careful about it. Never give away your card details or your personal details to these kind of hoax mails. Okay, they all are scams. You should be careful about it. Now, okay, how do I take care of things like that? I should always have to take care of my identity theft and all that. To take care of those things, I should use passwords, strong passwords. Password should not be a very general one which anybody else can guess. It should be a combination of numbers and characters, and as much as complex you can make it, it should be like that. Constant updation of antivirus and firewalls. We should install firewalls because nowadays we have so much of internet access that it's very important to have the uh, check, and the check can be done using these antivirus things. Okay, encryption is a very important technique. Encrypting is being done by almost all the banks and companies which are talking about sharing important information of the customers and all, and they are using an encryption technique which needs a key ultimately to decrypt it. Okay, so we cannot really do those encryption things ourselves. We have systems which create those kind of encryption for our data. But generally, these secure sites are taking care of these things. Your mails are being encrypted before being forwarded, and things are being done. So if you're working on the secure sites, these things will be taken care of. Okay. Then that's why this this should have been the fourth point. So the fourth point talks about use of the secure sites. It should have a lock symbol and has to be HTTPS, not HTTP. Okay, the OTPs you receive for transactions nowadays should not be shared. The password should not be shared with anybody. No friend is trustworthy enough, so you should not do that. Fine. So that was all about the ICT skills, where you should be careful about, what all you should know about your system, maintaining the system, security, privacy, the things which were important. I felt that they are very much required from the exam point of view. I have covered up those. Now let's take up some questions for the MCQs, and then you will get an idea that how things needs to be prepared. Now the first question here says, what happens if you leave a device plugged in even after it is charged 100%? Okay, so when you do that, whether it's a mobile or a machine, it'll get overheated. So it can break, it will not break, it will not stop functioning. Data will not get corrupt if you're not charging it, but it can get overheated. So C part is the correct answer for it. How can an antivirus protect your device? Right? So virus, it's an antivirus, it is protecting you from the virus. And virus generally corrupts your files, makes them unreadable, inaccessible at times. So that is what you're trying to prevent by the use of these antivirus. It's nothing to do with overheating. It can increase the performance. Viruses do hamper your performance, but the main is that prevent data from getting corrupt. It can back up data. No antivirus backs up data, so that's not the correct one. Which option is not required to keep a device cool? Which option is not required to keep a device cool? Okay, this is like, I think it's something which I should say, which option is not required to keep a device cool. The option which is required is that the CPU fan should be working. The other three are like unplugged when in use. That also helps to keep it cool at times. Does it? Keep the device unplugged when in use. No, that doesn't really help out. Do not cover a laptop with a blanket. Obviously, that's not logical. Avoid leaving the device in the sun. We will actually not do that. So, not required to keep the device cool. I think this is something where we have got multiple answers, and not required should have A, B, D as the answers. C is the actual when you say that what you should do to keep the device cool. Fine. So that needs to be taken care of. Which of the following is essential for maintaining the keyboard? So you can turn the keyboard upside down and shake to remove the foreign material, blow dust and other particles with the help of a blower. Use a very dilute combination of soap and water applied with a non-abrasive cloth to remove stains from the keycaps. So all these three options can be done. Hence the answer is all of the above. Next is it says, what should you do to ensure secure online transactions? To ensure secure online transactions, you should only use the HTTPS sites. You should give your credit card or bank details to these kind of safe websites, as we say, secure websites. Okay, that's the B option is correct. Locking your computer will not help. Antivirus doesn't help. Pirated software also, I would say that not using the pirated software definitely helps in this category. So both the options are correct. Now, because I picked up this question from the CBSE material, there they were allowing multiple options to be selected. But when you do the question paper, CBSE question paper, be careful that there multiple choices, you'll have only one answer until unless they mention something like that in the question. Okay. So here it is allowed, but in the actual exam, it might not be possible to have multiple answers. There'll be only one answer for a particular question. Fine. Be careful about that. Now, which of the following traps small children into inappropriate relations? That is the online predators. We have discussed it just now. It's not a worm, not an antivirus, not a Trojan horse. It is the online predators. What should a strong password consist of? It should be a combination of letters, numbers, and special characters. Okay, moving further, which type of virus replicates itself? It's the worms. Which type of virus poses as a useful software program? So every concept in detail, when you know, then only you can attempt these questions, right? Which poses as a useful software program? That was the second one. That is the Trojan. Okay. Then you can have these kind of shortcut keys also asked, like copy, cut, paste, select all. That is, these four are very typically undo, right? So control X is for cut, C is for copy, B is for paste, Z is for undo. Control A is for complete selection of the data, the whole text which is available, right? So these are a few key combinations which you should remember. The next comes here, valid file extension for a notepad file. So here we know it's .ext. Few extensions you can remember. Obviously, we can't remember all extensions. It's not possible. There are many types of files being used nowadays. All extensions we cannot remember, but just keep a track, wherever you're using. Just keep a track of the sound files, especially the picture files, which we commonly use, like JPEG, GIF are the picture files. Then you have few for the sound files, which are very commonly used. And these doc, XLS, these are your Excel and document files. PPTX, that's the presentation file, PowerPoint presentation file. Few commonly you can remember. And this was an interesting question where they said that sequence of steps while starting the computer. Okay, so what all options they have given is desktop appears after login. That's the last step. Login screen appears. So it's before that, right? Post, I said power on self-test. That is the first step. OS starts after the power on self-test. The operating system starts or it's being loaded. And then you have a welcome screen appears. That should be somewhere in between. Welcome screen appears before the login screen is there. Okay. So that sequence, you have these options available, and C part, which is third, fourth, fifth, second, and one. That's the correct option. Okay. Last one here, which of the following is an OS? I just discussed it while doing the video. This is like, is an OS. Now I was giving you a different example in this case. In this case, Microsoft Word, Excel, Access, these are general based softwares, general purpose softwares. Microsoft Windows here is my OS. Okay, so names of OS, names of general purpose softwares, you need to keep in mind. Otherwise, you cannot really attempt these kind of questions from here. Okay, that's all about the ICT skills, a summary kind of a thing. Go through it, and any term or any word you don't understand, you can ask me. Okay, thank you. Bye bye. Take care.